I'm going to call the meeting to order. Everybody is present. We need the Pledge of Allegiance. Jen?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. 5 of us are here in person, and Kirsten and Kenley are on speaker. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to talk to the board? We want to talk to you. Approval of the minutes. Is there a motion to approve?
Approve both the October 8th and October 29th meeting minutes.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Communications.
Okay, do you have donations? Let's see if I can get caught up. No. Okay, under communications, first is donations. We have the Rotary Educational Grants totaling $9,805. That's the annual grants teachers write for, and they can be awarded for up to $2,000. There were a couple $2,000 ones, and then some that were smaller. A lot of them, I think you saw the list in your packet. Computer equipment, reading programs, things like that. Waupaca Adult Soccer League, $200. Great Lakes Endurance LLC, $250. And then there's a list of the FFA convention donations, a large list of people who generously donate, so our students take some of those goods down to the convention and hand out at their booth. So, with appreciation, we need a motion to accept those.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. School board visits. Anybody, I know Betty has one because she beat me to the Learning Center today.
Oh, well, I'm kind of like a month behind on my schedule, so I did go to the Learning Center today. I went this morning, and it was, unfortunately, it was testing that was going on, the WKCE testing, and the good news is you could have heard a pin drop. I was amazed when I walked into rooms how quiet it was, but fortunately then the testing was over. So I spent some time in Maureen Perrin's room, and the children were talking about how excited they are because they go on a monthly trip to the Veterans Home, and there are 4 classes that do it. Linda Fenton's, Maureen Perrin's, Lisa Anderson, and I don't know who. Claire Ellie's class. And how much the students look forward to it, and they do something every month. They're in, each group is in a different hall at the Veterans Home, and how the veterans look forward to it and how much the kids enjoy it. I just think that's such an awesome program. Then I went to Mrs. Waldschmidt's room, and her class was studying about plants, and they were making really cool diagrams of plants. And so the question of the day is, what's the difference between a plant cell and an animal cell?
One belongs to a plant and one belongs to an animal.
No. A plant cell has an extra outer layer than an animal cell does. So that was very interesting, and the kids were amazed I didn't know that, particularly since I was a biology major in college, but whatever. We won't go there. So anyway, it was they were very excited to pass out that information, so it was cute. I went to Lori Duray's class, or not Lori Duray, Molly Duray's class, Lori's daughter, and this is her first year of teaching, and she was ecstatic with her 4th grade class, and they were working on factoring, and it was just really exciting to see a new teacher's excitement and pride in her class, so it was really cool. And then I ended up at Mr. Lemke's computer class, which absolutely blew me away, because the 3rd graders were working on reports of explorers, and they had studied about explorers, and then their job was to go on Print Shop and create a poster, an informational poster with pictures and maps and information about their explorer and what they had done and whatever. I was amazed at the abilities of 3rd graders in being able to use Print Shop, because
Did you do that?
Nope. And then he told me about a project that he does at the end of 3rd grade with Maureen Parents' class, and she takes pictures of her class all year and then posts them so that all the kids can see them. And then they each put together a film strip of their 3rd grade year based on pictures that they clip and paste into this film strip. And then they burn it on a CD, and everyone takes it home at the end of the year, and they have a film strip, iStrip, or iMovie it's called, of their 3rd grade year. And they do it all themselves with, of course, Mr. Lemke. So I was amazed that I've been to Mr. Polovitsky's high school class and seen all that technology that goes on there, but I was absolutely amazed to see how 3rd graders and 2nd graders and whatever, and how techie knowledgeable they are. No wonder why they're teaching all their parents about how to do things like program phones or whatever. So anyway, it was a great visit, and on my way out, I don't know which custodian I just had a short greeting with, but he was washing the windows of the doors. And I just said hello and said, hey, the windows look great. And he just gave me the biggest smile, and he was so proud of what he did. And I just thought, you know, it's just awesome. It takes everybody it takes a village to do all this. So it was a great visit. Great school. Oh, and the signs in the school are wonderful. Are those new this year?
They're
the
part of
Rascal
our-
Way?
Yes, and they're all our own students and our own staff.
Oh, they were really, really nice. Everywhere you look, there's these printed banners that, you know, with photographs on them that are really, really effective. So it was great. Thank you. That's me.
Anyone else?
Well.
Well, Steve, you went to the Mousetrap Derby, didn't you?
It did not make it.
What is it?
It's, they make cars, and they have to use a mousetrap for propulsion.
Who's they?
The kids.
High school physics.
Yeah.
Oh, high school?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you were at the Learning Center.
No, I was, I'm gonna get to that.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I can't remember the little kid that, he has this one that is huge wheels, and the little wheels up in front. And, I mean, it looks like it's done out of a high school shop class. And somehow they get that, the mousetrap whipped back, and then they start it, and the thing just starts going like this, and it's supposed to go, and then there was one that went, good grief, how many?
Over 10 meters.
Yeah,
How far?
Over 10 meters. 10 meters was as much distance as they could gather in the classroom. And then they took some out in the hallway.
out in the hallway, yeah.
Incidentally, the guy that Mr. Shambo was talking about is Eric Bulwark. And Eric was the student that attended our school board meeting probably 3 to 4 months ago as part of an Eagle Scout project.
Oh, yeah.
So he was the guy that had that fancy car.
Did he make all that? Or did he-
Yes.
I understand that he did.
Yeah, he made that all himself, designed it and everything.
Unbelievable. mean, it looked like something that you'd buy at some kind of craft store.
Yeah, he spent
But
some serious
it was
time.
pretty neat, and, you know, all the kids had a great time, and there were some that didn't go far, but,
They got 3 chances though to improve.
yes, some didn't.
Some actually went the other way.
But that was fun.
Whose class was that?
Brian Rufflinger.
Yeah. This afternoon, I went to Lisa Anderson's class at the Learning Center. First of all, I wanted to see how they got into the building, and that was interesting. And it's very similar to the one at the high school. You just go in, you have to push the buzzer, and they tell you to stand back so they can see who you are, and in you go. And I went to Lisa Anderson's class, and I didn't get out of there.
Do you have a test?
No. We were talking about some of these kids with their medical issues, and the thing that bothers them is the second graders have these cell phones, and they end up in different people's backpacks. And I'm just wondering, is there any reason why a second grader has a cell phone? I mean, they ought to be parked in a cell phone parking lot when you walk into the class. But, you know, they're kids that they end up in somebody else's backpack, and it's, you know, and it's a serious issue.
Do many have phones?
Not too many. And the incident today, the phone was an old phone that someone must have gave their child to play with, and they upgraded their phone. Didn't work, there was no battery in it.
Oh,
So,
what?
I think that's started out, as someone brought it in as a toy that they might have gotten from their parent and ended up in someone else's backpack.
Probably 3 or 4 different backpacks.
Probably.
But you know, and you sit down and talk to these teachers, and the things that the kids bring to class as far as their health issues. And, you know, they have to be up on all of them, whether it's diabetes, and they just have so much that they have to take care of. And it really interferes with their instruction. But it's just amazing to watch them deal with all of those people and still do their classwork. It's, you know, I'm very impressed. I can imagine how they have to wind down when they get home, because that's a real burden in there, and they must love it. But that was interesting. But I am very happy with the security, and that's pretty nice. I like the new parking lots. I was talking with people in the office, and there are quite a few cars along the grassy area. And what's the thought on those? Is that?
The cars in that last row next to the grass are the teachers in the 1st and 2nd grade on the 2nd floor in that far wing. Everybody else parks 1st floor in that wing, and everybody else in the building is parked in back.
There's a lot of
You
cars.
basically assign spots for them out of the way,
Yes,
and only they can park there.
right. There's about approximately 15 to 20 cars there in that row. The rest of the building is behind in the other parking lot.
So I'm happy with that. And I know the staff that I talked to were happy with that, which is good.
You mentioned security. I was leaving the high school the other day, and it was still during class time. And I had, gone through the motions of going through the, buzzer and everything. As I was leaving, there was a young man, and I don't know if he was a student or a brother coming to get someone or who he was, but he had just pushed the buzzer on the intercom that goes to the office, and he saw me open up the door, and he started heading right over to the door, and I said, you still have to do that. And he gave me kind of a look like, thanks a lot. This is going to delay me all of 12 seconds or something, but I don't know how much we have of that at any of the schools where someone will see an open door and access it that way, but I suspect there's some. Not that they don't necessarily go to the office as they should and everything once they get in, but I suggest it's always going to be some sort of an issue.
It's a learning process for everybody. That happened when we were there as well. Remember, student letting others in. I was at the Waupaca district offices today, and they have a sign on their door, big fluorescent or pink, purple sign that says, "Do not let others in this door." It's a buzzed-in door, so they're having the same issues, I'm sure.
Good.
Do either Kenley or Kirsten, do you have any school business to report?
Dave, I'll talk next month when I'm back in the
Sounds good.
boardroom.
Okay.
Notice of school board elections. Kenley, Steve Johnson, terms expire. Declarations available December 2nd and due January 7th. Neither one of you can get out. For the election purposes, we have to appoint a deputy clerk. Carol has been that person for many years and is most familiar with the process, and I will appoint her. Recognition, Dave?
Okay. American Education Week is November 17th through the 21st. In your packet is a letter regarding Kira Morrissey, our high school music teacher. She was accompanist for the State Music Association Mixed Choir in Madison. And then Coach Ron Steinhorst, the forensic coach, was recognized by the National Forensic League. And then finally, I just want to mention Waupaca High School Musical. I'm sure many of you went to that. It was a success. A lot of tickets sold from what I understand. A very well attended show. I went Saturday night and was very well received. Kids did a great job, as did Mr. Wolfgram and the rest.
I went on Tuesday, and it's just amazing the difference between when I was in the high school in Hendrickson Center and how you can hear everything that goes on. And I don't know how many mics they have on those kids. Everything is just crystal clear. And Fran Bergowan was sitting near me, and he said he has a earpiece, and you just push a button on it, and everything goes into that.
Wow.
And
Like you have at church.
Is that
Yeah.
Luke system?
Yeah.
Coil or,
Yeah.
But
and he said it was very clear.
Oh,
It worked well.
yes.
Yeah, that's good.
I think it should be said too that I didn't attend the musical this year, but I know that it was tougher for the kids and for Dan and everybody else because of the death of the student at the school. That really kind of came at a crux time with pulling the musical together. So the fact that, they still went on and that it was as good as other years, I think says a lot for the students and staff.
Yeah, I would agree. There are always things going on, and this year it was a little different than other years, and process it, it'll look very well. I'm going to go ahead, future dates. December 10th is our next regular board meeting, 5:45 p.m. That's going to take us to presentation tonight by Ms. Rhonda Hare and Ms. Marie Marcon regarding our 4-year-old kindergarten planning update. And as I suggested, what we're looking for tonight, and I do have a handout for you, there's a letter that we would like to distribute to the public, but I wanted you to be the first to hear about it and not hear about it from other places. And get your blessing to move forward with that. I'm going to pass this letter around first. And they will explain the purpose of the letter as we go forward.
So, Rhonda and I are here tonight to share with you the investigation that we have been doing this year in regards to 4-year-old kindergarten. We're interested in it and taking a look at the potential of having that implemented here in our district. And then getting their approval for a community meeting in December. So,
Marcon, you've got the camera right behind you.
oh,
so would you-
excuse me.
That way he can see this and he
Okay.
can probably
All right.
focus on you too if he needs to. Okay.
So our goal is to collaborate with coaches, with a coach from DPI and CISA 5 to explore 4-year-old kindergarten models that are out there. And then to identify best programming for the Waupaca School District. So what is 4-year-old kindergarten? 4-year-old kindergarten is, provides social and emotional foundation and through a play-based curriculum. And then it prepares the children for the 5-year-old kindergarten, and they're ready for to learn those academics during the 5-year-old kindergarten. So why not? Why should Waupaca be looking at this time? So through discussions over the summer, we have learned that we are the only district in our CISA that does not have a 4-year-old kindergarten program. 90% of Wisconsin's public school districts provide a 4-year-old kindergarten. Last month, we took a look at those achievement gaps that we have across the curriculum, and 4-year-old kindergartens help close those gaps, especially in the socially economically disadvantaged areas of students with language, English as their second language, and the special education population as well. And we also know that parents really take a close look at districts when they're deciding on where to reside. And a lot of them take a look at districts that have 4-year-old kindergartens. If they do, that comes to the top of their list of a place to move to. So we're looking at a community approach model, and that's the one that DPI is recommending us to look at and to study. And what this will do, it really acknowledges the exceptional programming that our preschools have right now. We do have really strong preschool programs right here in Waupaca. The community approach also builds a stronger relationship and at an earlier stage with parents, with community, and school staff. The community approach also provides the same consistent curriculum at all of the preschool facilities. All facilities would have licensed teachers, and then all 4-year-olds would be provided or have an opportunity to receive the 4-year-old kindergarten program, and not just a few kids. For a percentage of our students right now that are being serviced in preschool programs.
Okay, so we looked into the research behind the 4-year-old kindergarten programs. A lot of it's a little older now because we have not yet established it, but in summary, usually when the investment, the return on your investment for 4K comes in future years. So you get the state funding, but also fewer special ed referrals and higher test scores. So the higher quality learning programs and the more cost-effective use of resources is why they often promote the community-based model. Other research shows that the socioeconomic achievement gap that Maureen was referring to could be eliminated by up to 20% by offering a 4-year-old kindergarten. And the more a public school, the more public expenditure on preschool programs, the higher test scores. That's been proved on the national level. And the social emotional skills a child acquires before age 5 will be able to be more even. So if children arrive at kindergarten unable to sit still or follow directions, for example, or use language to communicate their ideas, they're already farther behind. So you can see how the achievement gap is growing. So there are several benefits to the community-based program. The first one is the benefit to the children and their families. And because the 4-year-old classes are held for the children, their services are less fragmented, and the convenience of location, and also that preschool can be affordable to all families. And we have a little testimonial clip. We have some clips embedded in here that are from districts. Some are from bigger districts and some are just like ours, so you can hear what some other districts are doing. About the benefits to parents that once their child are in a preschool center, they don't necessarily have to go to a different location for 4-year-old classes. So the second benefit is to our schools. As we said before, students will begin 5-year-old kindergarten with similar social background experiences, and that will be a higher quality learning program then and more cost-effective use of resources, kind of even the playing field before they start. We have a testimonial to the benefits of schools, but
We're getting there.
Just give me a second. Now we'll see what happens.
Children coming into kindergarten weren't ready. And we'd spend weeks trying to get them prepared socially and emotionally to be successful in kindergarten. And sometimes it would take a majority of the year. And so having this ability to be able to touch and impact 4-year-olds and give them the exposure so that they can be successful when they walk into those school buildings is really important.
Our kindergarten teachers or teaching staff at the elementary love that the kids are coming with that common background.
Kids have that understanding of what school is about. So instead of having to spend those first several weeks really getting into following the rules and how do you stand in a line to walk down the hallway and how do you sit and listen to a story and you don't interrupt the teacher and you raise your hand, kids have those things coming in now where they may not have had those coming in from childcare. So the kindergarten teachers have found that they're able to jump into the curriculum a whole lot sooner.
And then the next big benefit is for the child care centers that are already in existence. they can continue their viable system in the community. And their staff then benefit from partnering with licensed teachers and quality curriculum, and it will unite the community then around the needs of the young children. Here's a testimony to that.
We were able to implement a community-based approach, which I felt was very important, to create some collaboration with all the community partners, many of whom were parochial schools or child care centers who already were operating their own preschool programs, and it allowed us to partner with them.
With a community collaborative, the sites had to get together and talk, and they had to have kind of a united voice to partner with the district. Even though the district sought them out first, it really could have been a one-sided deal had they not had that voice. So getting them to work together and kind of losing that competition, but maintaining the uniqueness of each site has been very good. Suddenly things that were maybe not possible for you to do on your own, you can do because you've got extra supports.
And that's powerful when you have those groups of teachers working together in different environments, and many times even different philosophies, and seeing what good practice is, what really works for these children at these ages.
So we just shared with you some of the investigations that Rhonda and I have done so far. And what are some of our next steps? What we are proposing is an informational meeting for our stakeholders on Monday, December 9th at the high school community room. And here we'll have our coaches from DPI and CISA doing the presentation. We would like to invite daycares, preschools, Head Start, civic organizations, library, churches, the rec department. So people are, the community can hear what the proposal is about. And again, it's just an informational meeting about what 4K is all about. And then from that meeting, we would then identify our stakeholders. Who would mesh best with the Waupaca School District? Who do we see would be good working teams with us from the community? And then we'd establish a foundation that would include a mission and vision and a framework of organizational structure. And then we would continue with ongoing advisory committee and steering committee meetings. Then we would visit some sites in other districts just to get from them what works best. Explore grant opportunities and to apply for any that are out there available for us. Once we have everything put together, then we would like to return to you and present a plan and present the program with the hopes and the intent of implementing the program with the 2014-15 school year. That's next year.
So a copy of that letter, you have a copy of the letter, I just handed that out. That was cool. But while they're perusing now, would you just talk a little bit about if things came together the way you want them to, what would it look like? We'd have 3 or 4 centers in town. We would have classrooms in the district. We'd hire teachers to put there, or they would hire teachers to.
Right, we definitely use Head Start. Head Start is like a key, any district that has a Head Start, they're like, oh, they're part of this because they're just great at collaborating with the school districts. And what we would do is we would have a guideline of factors to consider when identifying which preschools we would work with. Because we have a number of them. I think there's 7 sites that we counted.
And DPI and CISA help, they coach you through this because they've done it in other communities.
So then what we're looking at, the district would be hiring the teachers to be teaching right in those preschools and using curriculum that we would purchase. And the curriculum is minimal as far as expense, and they would be using their resources and their materials right there because it's just a role-play based program curriculum that they'd be using. There's a couple ways that teachers are hired, and it depends on the preschool. Like Head Start has their own teachers already, so then the district would set up a contract and work out some kind of a percentage of their salaries would come from, we would pay a percentage of their salaries, as we would in a couple other facilities that already have licensed teachers. And then we would work with other facilities and either determine if we are going to hire the teachers for them to teach a morning and an afternoon class, or if they're gonna hire them, and again, we would set up a contract that we would be paying that facility. We would like to have one preschool, 4-year-old program on site, probably at the Waupaca Learning Center, because we do have some special education children that do need to come to the Waupaca Learning Center because of the occupational and physical therapies that they need, or the intensive programming that they need, but they also need that 4K program to be with their peers. So we are proposing that as well.
That social play-based curriculum is 2.5 hours per day. So there's a morning and an afternoon session. And then we need to provide transportation. However, some parents, the beauty of it is if they're in a daycare all day, they can just stay there. They take part in that curriculum, but they stay. So that's an individual family choice. But the 2.5 hours would be the curriculum for the school district. 4 days a week. The 5th day is usually parent outreach.
So for parents that already have children in daycare, they would be paying them for half a day of daycare?
It's worked out that, yeah, they're not paying that full day of daycare.
Because the 4K is provided, correct? So they're paying for 4 half days and then a full day.
We have to look into that 5th
But I know,
day.
yeah, how that works, but yes.
So when the research was done 5 years ago, or whenever previously we did it, have you found that there is a bigger gap with kids now? Because I know the research showed when this was done previously that there wasn't, the kids were coming to school with some really good skills, and we really weren't farther behind. So is it that our kids are behind, or that we want this as a marketing ploy to be sure that we're keeping up with everybody else?
I believe that the curriculum in kindergarten has become more and more rigorous through the years, and since the last time that we investigated the 4K programming and the need for it, that teachers were saying, hey, the preschool programs that we have in our community are doing a great job. And they are. They really, they are. They still are doing a really nice job. But we have a large chunk of children entering kindergarten that are not getting exposed to that preschool curriculum of any kind.
So that has changed.
And demographics have changed.
So we're hearing from the kindergarten teachers, oh my gosh, so many kids are not ready anymore. I wish we had a 4K to help with this.
What would happen if you got a parent at home with these kids, and then they would just sign up for an afternoon, or is it 5 days a week, half day?
4 days a week, half day.
And then they just sign up for one of these,
Like old kindergarten used to be, probably.
yeah, okay. So you're gonna take those kids that have been home and not being schooled, they will end up in a half day that the parents don't have to pay for.
Correct.
And it's not mandatory.
No, it's
Still optional.
It's still optional, and parents will have the option too of, we can provide them with the curriculum, and they can use the curriculum in their own homes as well, so.
What about, I could see how this would transition well into a preschool or a daycare program. But what about like a preschool program where the students only go like 2 days a week? Would preschools have to expand their?
They have to be modified
Okay.
to meet the qualifications.
And are there some sites where there's just a few kids that would be there that would be, exactly fit this grade level to do 4-year-old kindergarten?
We would look at a ratio that we may try to balance out the sites, that there'd be X amount of students per site if it's 13 to 1 or something like that.
If they were a site with 2 kids, we probably wouldn't offer the program.
No,
Right.
right, we would then transfer them, plus them to another facility for a while.
So this talked about the community approach. What are other approaches?
It would be just
At the school?
at the school, the old, traditional way.
Of the 90% of schools that have 4-year-old kindergarten, how many of them are community-based programs?
I did see a graph on that, and when it first started, it was always in the school building. But now the trend is, it's like an opposite scale. Now it's going completely community-based. But there still are more school-based because they started earlier back when.
But Ron and I were at a presentation last week, and they didn't even use the word school-based. It was all community-based.
And you know, in Waupaca, like in Sunny Day, are there qualified people to teach this 4-year-old kindergarten? Or would, because I know you talked about bringing teachers into some of these sites, but is that?
We haven't even got to that step
Oh,
yet,
okay.
so.
But you said Head Start has that?
Right,
You
Head
know
Start,
that.
and some of the facilities already have licensed teachers, or there might be some licensed teachers at Head Start, but it's not a mandatory thing for their teachers to have that licensure.
We're in a bit of a dilemma in that we didn't want to go talk to those people until you knew about it, so that we don't start a stir in the community about what are we doing, and then calling you. So we wanted to have this conversation first.
But I do want to say that some of my special ed staff are going out into the community right now and working with some of our special ed students. Early childhood is going to Head Start and had been going to Sunny Day, and right now we have one of our speech and language pathologists attending both Head Start and Sunny Day, and they're very receptive. And there have been other preschools in town that I've contacted and said, we might have some special education students at your facility that may need some services. Would you mind if we came to you? And so the students right in their natural environment, and everybody was quite receptive to the school collaborating with them.
Those are students that we're obligated to serve, and now we're going to where they are to do that service.
So are these kids that turn 4, what's the current cutoff?
September 1st. It's like turning 5, September 1st for 5-year-olds.
I'm trying to imagine what happens to the income of the service providers now if we're providing teachers or paying the teachers, and they're only paying customers then for the other parts of the day that are now being covered by the district. Would we be paying any expenses in addition to teaching staff and their materials?
Often their staff ends up being an aid or helping facilitate during the teaching time, so they often can keep their whole staff.
And we pay them during that time, then, instead of them paying them, we pay
I
them.
see. So that was,
Some
It's really
offset
they
there,
would require less income than from.
potentially.
I remember when 4-year-old kindergarten first came to be, like how many years ago was that?
When we looked at it,
How many years has 4-year-old kindergarten been in the state?
well,
4 years, it has always been there. In the end of the 90s, it really started a big push.
Okay, so 15 years maybe?
that was since we looked at it.
Because I remember when we looked at it, one of the fears of taking it was that it would go away, that the funding wouldn't be there, and we had started it, and then it's
Right.
hard to discontinue something once you start something. Obviously, it's going well, and you don't foresee that.
Wish I could answer that question more positively, but I do know that the Republican adopted platform is to eliminate 4-year-old kindergarten in the state of Wisconsin.
It is.
Yes.
And what was the reasoning? From a nonpartisan.
I don't know.
Don't know?
I don't know.
Save money.
I think they believe that the children belong in a home.
What kind of home?
I don't believe that's gonna happen, but I don't think that with 90% of schools having 4-year-old kindergarten, they're not just gonna pull the rug out from under it. I don't think.
Well, plus all the testing shows how beneficial it is.
And the expectations for kids in kindergarten. We're testing kids as a community kindergarten now with PALS testing, and the expectations get higher and higher. I was gonna make a comment before, and now's probably a good time, but when you said you walked in and found kids testing, well, that's happening more and more. We're doing a lot of testing and less teaching.
When we looked at this the last time, you talked about it closing the gap a bit. As I recall, a lot of the research showed that that did indeed occur. However, by the time they got to, I believe it was roughly the 3rd grade, with or without, they came to about the same position. And this is just kind of following up on Connie's question. Is that still to a degree the case that at that point they converge? Or, I mean, the research seems to have changed rather dramatically in 3 years. And I'm just curious as to what portion has changed, or if it is throughout.
I think, I did see one report like that, but I didn't see a lot because it's kind of, the waters are kind of muddied because of RTI, and because we're catching those kids so early that we're closing that gap in many different ways and at different times. There's not a point where it converges. So it's kind of hard to say one is the cause of the other, because now we're so diligent about who's behind and catching them up. And if you go down to the 4-year-old level and give them that base where you learn how to stand in line, how to be friends, and how to treat each other, then they're coming all the more ready to do those academics. So I can't give you a place where that gap closes, because there's so many factors.
Realizing you're just at the infancy of looking at this, do we have, based on this year's kindergarten enrollment, any projection at all as to what the cost would be? Understanding that you still need to look at availability of grants, et cetera, but do we have a ballpark based on other districts' experiences?
We do, and I asked Mr. Ike to put that together, and I took a look at it today. I can't give you a number until we know whether we're going to hire the teachers, whether we're going to pay the preschools to hire the teachers at their own salary rate. Transportation is going to be a big factor. How many bus routes do we have to run, et cetera. Funding for 4-year-old kindergarten is at either 0.4% or 0.5%, depending on what your program is, 40% or 50% of what a first grader would be funded at. We're factoring all those things together. There are stories out there, in one district you saw the gentleman on here talking about, he says that his school sees $900,000 gain by adding 4-year-old kindergarten. Now, we believe that if we break even adding 4-year-old kindergarten, we'd be happy with that. And my point is that probably a whole bunch of different ways of looking at that, but realistically, we would like to break even, but we think the first year on the outside, well, I can't even go by that number because I found out that you've made some revisions.
Because for 10 teachers, when we forgot that they would teach a morning and an afternoon section, so really
So
went out
costing had 10
5
teachers in it, now it's really only 5 teachers. But that outside costing, as you showed me, the bottom line was we might pay, it was $119,000 it would cost the district. But boy, I'm really reluctant to say that, that's on the outside.
That's with or without transportation?
That's with the transportation as best we can. How many routes did you cost in Italy? 4 routes, 4 morning and 4 afternoon. Yeah. So it might be 5, it might be 6, it might be 3.
And the timing of when the instruction would be versus when the students would be picked up and or returned would work, at least in theory, with the current resources we have?
That'd be morning and afternoon. We would have a delivery in the morning and a pickup in the afternoon then for the 2 half-day programs. So we are adding routes.
I understand that, but
okay.
I'm talking about the timing. That would, I would assume, be somehow embedded within the window of the current pickup.
that's the way it was planned out.
So the morning students would ride the bus with grades 5 through 12? I mean, grades K through 12, 5-year-olds through 12? And get on a bus at 6:20 in the morning?
Some of them, the more remote ones, yes.
They would have that opportunity. Now, they're not riding the bus now,
Uh-huh.
so they don't have to do that, but we
Uh-huh.
would make it available.
You know, we're thinking about costs here, but I think we have to look at what the kids are going to get from four-year kindergarten. And I think what you two are both saying is that it really, really gives these four-year-olds a jump start into kindergarten. And I think we, as the school board, have to look at that as the main focus. And it's gonna, I mean, if we broke even, it would be a blessing, but I don't think that's the only thing we've got to look at. We have to look at the idea that this is really gonna bring these kids farther along and get into kindergarten and do well. And
I don't disagree, but I think the costs are fair game for questioning.
Well,
Can't be oblivious to the costs, they have to be factored in. But I guess what I'd caution against is many districts say, well, we're gonna add four-year-old kindergarten because we can make money off of it. And I don't think we will make money off of it in the whole scheme of things. If we break even, like I said, I'd be very pleased. But I caution anyone to listen to or to believe that we're gonna make money off of it, because that's not gonna happen. I'm not sitting here telling you that. But one of the ways this played out and really got to me a little bit this year, this whole idea of open enrollment. We had a family move from a neighboring district into Waupaca, and they wanted to open enroll into the district that they came from. They want their kids to finish in that district. Well, that's okay in grades K through 12, but if they're in a four-year-old kindergarten, they can't open enroll into a neighboring district because we don't offer that same program. And you can't. Those were the cautions put on early on open enrollment. We don't want, because Iola offers four-year-old kindergarten, we don't want everybody leaving Waupaca to go to Iola to go to four-year-old kindergarten. If we don't offer it, they can't open enroll to another district. So in that case, that child had to quit going to school in order to, because the family moved to Waupaca. And when you've got all of your schools in your CISA surrounding area offering 4K, I just hate to see that situation happen for the transient population that we do have.
so we're gonna proceed to.
Well, unless you tell us not to, we're going to put this letter out and to have them convene that meeting and see if we can further define what it is we want to do and why we want to do it. I think with the help of CISA and DPI, who have been through this 100 times already, they'll help navigate us through that with the providers, local providers.
Do we need a motion, or is it just a consensus?
I just prefer consensus at this
Okay.
time.
Can I ask one quick
Sure.
question? Do you have any sense of how many four-year-olds within our district currently go to some sort of daycare or preschool? Or,
We did do some preliminary digging on that, but we didn't get hard numbers yet. We were just using 150 as our, 150 four-year-olds in the district, not that they all went to the center. We don't.
About half of that, but that's kind of a ballpark figure. We don't have those numbers right now.
really right now, the most unsettling part is the thought of children that young getting on a bus and but the children who are currently going to the programs are transported by family.
The preschool, I mean, the daycare.
The
Yeah,
daycare,
they're
yeah.
already being.
Most other districts, though, they do ride the buses
They
with
do.
them. Yeah.
But if the program is 2.5 hours, so, I mean, they'd get to school obviously earlier than the program starts? How does that work?
Well, we'd have to work that out.
Okay. So, yeah.
I
My daughter babysits for a couple girls in her school, and one of them was in her house, over in La Crosse, in Holman, and the one girl was in 4-year-old kindergarten, and she would have to drop her at a main site at 12:30 or something for the afternoon program, so it's, you know, I guess it's doable, and if parents want to do it, this is the plan, and you've got to get them there, yeah.
Lacrosse was actually the first community-based site in the state. Lacrosse was the first community-based site in the state.
What
I've
kind
actually-
of follow-up would you envision after this is sent?
After that, after the meeting, that's when we would gather the steering committee.
I mean, you get the people to the meeting.
Oh, we would actually mail it by invite to all the organizations that Maureen listed, churches, all the daycares, all the civic organizations, library, rec center, Tennessee City.
I'm just thinking some of them that we might, if we go forward with this, that we might partner with. I'm just wondering if a personal contact would be beneficial once the letter is made.
For a follow-up after this meeting?
No, even when this letter goes out,
Oh,
I think a
do a
personal contact.
would be-
would- So they understand that.
So there's clear communication.
Yes.
As to what's going to
Can
be.
parents attend that too, if they get wind of it?
They can. You know, we don't want it too large, as it's just an informational meeting, and even our coaches are recommending that you don't want too big of a group there. Because it is really to focus on those key players that we want to go into.
Would you anticipate then having any more public meetings?
Oh, absolutely.
And when would you start, if everything goes as planned?
They feel we could start next fall.
They do? How
Well,
do you feel
in
about
their
it?
experience.
Yeah.
DPI should
Yeah,
talk
their
about
experience.
in-season and their experience.
The people who are doing the work, like.
Yeah. No, I feel with their support that we can, the support from the school district.
I've seen the timeline and it's cool.
I actually, for the past 2 years, have done a storytelling residency for 10 weeks in a daycare in Wisconsin Rapids, a childcare, I think it's Building Talks. And it's a community-based program, and it's been 4-year-old kindergarten. And it's beautiful the way it works. The kids just come in just like normal kindergarten. They spend 2.5 hours, and when the session is over, they leave the classroom and walk down the hall to the daycare the daycare end of the building, and then the next class comes in. And having said that, I am absolutely amazed at what 4-year-olds can do based on that. And it's exactly what they said. They come in, they sit down, they pay attention, they do their calendar. You would have a hard time seeing that it isn't 5-year-old kindergarten, because.
Or what we used to know as 5-year-old
Exactly,
kindergarten.
because it's, they just learn so quickly. And this was a program that was very structured in play, the same thing, where there were a lot of centers that the kids went to and whatever, but then we spent an hour once a week and doing storytelling. So I was amazed at what was done, and the ability of the young children, and the parents that we interacted with were so grateful for the opportunity. And there really wasn't much of a change, because the children had been going to that daycare from 1 or 2-year-old. Actually, they take infants there. So it wasn't a very difficult transition for the students, because they've been there forever. So it was a great experience. And if you're looking for a good site to go to, I would really recommend that site, because they really do a nice job.
Mark, as long as you're up there, seclusion and restraint report, can you just explain that quickly?
Sure. By law, we have to provide the school district, the school board, with a report each year of the number of seclusion and restraints in each of our buildings, in our school buildings. And so what you were presented with was a report of the total number that we had last school year. So we had 1 seclusion and 1 restraint.
we have to identify if those seclusion or restraints are special ed students, general ed students, how many special ed students were involved in those seclusions and restraints. And so both of these individuals have individual educational plans, and part of their plans is written right in how to respond to their escalations. And we use quiet rooms, calming rooms a lot. So if we see students that are escalating quite a bit, we try to diffuse them by communicating with them and giving them lots of breaks, and then maybe having them take some time to just collect themselves, quiet themselves down. Like I had written there, that we provide nonviolence, non-crisis training to our staff members that help with the communication when students are escalating, how to communicate with them, how to help de-escalate them, how to listen attentively to their needs, how to continue to treat them with respect, to use a team approach so that one person isn't getting too excited and emotional while we're trying to deal with a child who is escalating. And I feel that has really helped too in the number of seclusions and restraints that we've had to use. I'm not saying that Waupaca has had a great number of them, but it really has helped us to approach students with dignity and respect and having the same language and working as a team to meet the needs of students who are feeling very, very anxious, very, very angry, very, very scared, and losing control. So the restraint was because the student had become very physically violent and with hitting others, causing harm to others. And so that's why there was the restraints, and then the seclusions was because the child was becoming so escalated that if the child wasn't in a room that individual could not leave, that child could have caused potential harm to him or herself or something else. So.
Legislature passed a law that said we have to report that to you annually. That's why it's part of this agenda.
And so you'll be seeing this each year from now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is a security cost report. I thought is there a way I can make this on the whole page? Does anybody know? Ben? Anyway, I wanted to give you an idea of what kind of money we spent on our security initiatives compared to the amount of money you authorized. Pleased to report that the expenses came in under what you authorized. I did get a request from someone today saying, well, you spent over $1 million and the board only authorized $830,000 for these expenditures. But the misunderstanding there was when we came to you in July, I think, you authorized $830,000 to be spent out of the Fund 41 Capital Expenditure Capital Projects Fund. And at that time, we said we're going to try to get the rest of the expenditures out of what's left over in Fund 10 for 2012-13, or budget into Fund 10 operations budget in 2013-14. So the total that came out of the Capital Projects Fund, I think, is $721,745 plus 41,093, so about 765,000 of the 830 that you authorized. Some of our expenses came in under what we anticipated them to be. And then in addition to that was what we didn't talk about in July was the WLC parking lot expansion or parking lot project. So that was added on to that July understanding of our, what we call security initiatives, and that's included in there. So $1,009,000. Now that I have these numbers and we have everything probably 90%, 95% in practice and bugs worked out, I would like to put a column in the paper identifying what we did, how much we spent, why we did it. Just a follow-up to the column that I had last year explaining what we're attempting to do.
I think that's a good idea.
Any questions on that costing or?
Well, I know someone was working with Officer Rodens on the cameras still over at the high school, and I don't know how much of that was just specific to the high school or emerging to any other cameras at other sites, but do we have a feel as to, is he pretty well set there now in his office?
It's a work in progress. He's trying to identify where we can start seeing people go from one camera to the next, and so we're trying to block into groupings. And it's a work in progress because we're trying to figure out which is the best group to identify and then move to the next group.
Part of the purchase was buying a few extra cameras and having a little bit extra hardware so that as we identify areas that we need to increase our surveillance, our own technicians can go in and put that in.
Any other questions?
Monitoring?
That does take us to our board monitoring, and first is the educator effectiveness model. You've heard us talk about educator effectiveness. We have had several people in the district trained, including administrators and teachers, and the educator effectiveness model is piloting it this year with those people who were trained near the end of last year for implementation in 2014-15, and I think they'll do a pretty good job of explaining that here. Just bear with me for a minute. I just want to show you about a 5-minute video. Yes, I will need to put them back in. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna undo
Oh.
it. What are those 7 little dots mean?
Now do I gotta go back to it?
There's been a lot of talk about new teacher and principal evaluation in Wisconsin. What has this evaluation system been like for educators who've been piloting it in Wisconsin?
What it's changed about us is the collaborative nature between the administration and the teachers. And I think we all feel very hopeful that it will make our teaching better.
Evaluations are now around how are we going to get better at what I chose to get better at, and get some feedback from your administrator or your superintendent.
You're probably using less anecdotal information than we used in the past, and really using some hard numbers and hard evidence.
In Wisconsin, we've always been concerned about improving instruction across the state. It's part of our DNA. Thankfully, educator evaluation has evolved. I've been in public education more than 36 years now. I think, frankly, we've never done a real good job of evaluating people's performance and actually using that evaluation for improving instruction. Well, I'm here to tell you that we're in a different place now. We've created a new Wisconsin Educator Effectiveness System. It's a great model. It's going to be used to improve instruction. It's going to be used to provide principals and teachers a roadmap for improvement. We're finally going to get to the point where we actually can start to personalize and customize professional development. The best way to improve student achievement is to have strong teachers and strong principals. It's an absolute key to this. So that is why I'm really excited about this program, and I believe that it's absolutely connected directly to our Agenda 2017, which is all about closing achievement gaps and graduation gaps and lifting up all children.
Many people mistakenly believe that Act 10, or the state's No Child Left Behind waiver, prompted Wisconsin to develop an educator effectiveness system. This is not the case. In 2010, Superintendent Evers convened a diverse group of educational stakeholders to discuss ways to empower and support educators in continuous improvement of professional practice in order to lead to improved student outcomes. Across 2011, this design team reviewed research and best practices both nationally and locally to develop the Wisconsin Educator Effectiveness System. The team selected an evaluation model that measures educator practice and student outcomes equally. It takes multiple measures and multiple forms of evidence into account and specifically identifies each educator's strengths and areas of needed improvement. To support evaluation of teacher practice, the team selected the internationally respected Danielson Framework for Teaching. A similar model has been developed for evaluating principals' professional practice. Wisconsin's system differs from those implemented in other states. Our system was built to empower educators, support the professional growth, and draw upon their expertise to develop a system which ultimately improves student outcomes. Our system was designed by and for Wisconsin educators. DPI intentionally chose an incremental implementation phase, which allowed a full year of design for the system and 2 full years to pilot the system. DPI has developed a training plan and is developing training materials. DPI has contracted with CSIS to support local implementation. Pilot participants and external reviewers from UW-Milwaukee have actively participated in providing feedback to refine the systems. One piece of feedback pilot participants have given DPI is that the educator effectiveness system has positively impacted their practice.
So seeing the differences within the different levels of teaching, you also saw the videos. You actually got to apply your knowledge towards, those videos, taking notes, looking for evidence yourself. It makes you become more aware of what you're doing in your own classroom.
So I really appreciated the specificness of the framework and what the teaching actually looks like in the classroom, and then next steps for how to improve.
When I created my SLO, I realized how much independence and freedom was involved in it. I could totally, whatever I developed depended completely on my needs, my classroom, my teaching style, and what I wanted to improve. So therefore, it made it very flexible for what I really wanted to do in my classroom.
It's probably the most sophisticated tool that I've seen in my career in 32 years. Once we begin using that on a day-to-day basis and become more comfortable with it, I think we're both going to become better evaluators and help teachers to develop into better instructors.
In Wisconsin, improving practice and helping all students is what our educators are all about. They care. This new system of educator effectiveness will support all teachers in the state of Wisconsin and will help to improve student learning. And most importantly, it'll move us towards that overall goal is to make sure that every child graduates prepared for college and career.
So you're going to hear more about that as time goes by. I think you've heard pieces already in the news. You've heard about some districts using educator effectiveness as part of a merit pay system. It's based on data. I'm not suggesting we go that route, but that's where you're hearing it already. I don't think it's ready for, it's still being piloted, but it's very individualized. Teachers will be able to go on a computer program and be looking at identifying their needs and then clicking on a link that will show them a video of how to, what it looks like to perform as an effective teacher versus ineffective, or different ranges, so they can actually see modeling of what they need to do to improve. And it's not only teacher educator effectiveness, it's administrator effectiveness as well. There are program pieces of this for administrators and for boards to evaluate superintendents also. So.
Where did we get our training?
I'll train you.
And this will.
Again?
This will be implemented next year?
It's scheduled to be implemented. We have applied and received a grant so that each of our employees gets an account with, what's that name again?
Teachscape.
Teachscape. Gets a Teachscape account, and that's where they start tracking their own improvements. We had, I know Ben and Rhonda, Carl, Rob wasn't part of that, no.
John.
And John, yes, as administrators, and then we had teachers at each building level trained, and they're modeling it this year, just working out the bugs, so that they can be spokespeople for it when everyone gets involved. It's going to take a couple of years to iron through it, but it's to be effective next year.
What's the initial feedback from the teachers that are in the?
The initial feedback is that it's a very effective program, but it is way too time consuming. I think, is that fair to say? That no one understands how they're going to be able to do it effectively or correctly with the time that they have. It's just very time intensive. That's the biggest complaint so far.
What takes the time? Is there anything specific, or it's just you're collecting so much information and doing so much?
Well, I can speak to that a little bit. I'm working with Lori DeRay at the Learning Center, and Lori and I are on the timeline right now. We're following the timeline of Teachscape for her evaluation under the Charlotte Danielson model. And the teacher needs to identify 2 student learning outcome goals for their class with groups of students, whether it's whole class or parts of their class. And then the teacher also has to fill out 2 professional goals for the year, all of which need to be measured. And it's putting together the SLOs. I know Mr. Ray put in a lot of time developing her SLOs, so they're practical uses in the classroom. And her 2 are, one is a writing goal and one is a math goal with certain groups in her classroom. And so developing that, finding the time for Lori and I to meet, going over those goals, looking at whether or not the goals are obtainable or not, when we're going to meet again in January to go over the goals to see how she's doing, and looking at all of the tools to measure whether or not the goals are going to be met. It is time consuming, and she's handled it very well so far.
But it's not a beginning of the year, end of year. It's progressive evaluation all along the way.
Correct.
Making improvements, so it's not like the old days. Okay, we'll tell you what we're doing beginning, at the end of the year, we'll tell you whether we did it or not. No, it's not like that.
At the end of each year, you will look to see if you met those goals during their evaluation term. So every 3 years, every year teachers will have their SLOs and the professional goals. At the end of each year, we have to sit down to look at whether or not the goals have been met that she set for herself and for her students.
There's monitoring of those goals all along.
All year long, yes.
So I just want to give you an introduction to what that's about, and I thought the video did
Did
as
she
well.
volunteer to do that?
I asked her.
Well, that's
Yeah,
really.
She could have said no.
She could have said no.
And is it the sort of thing, it doesn't sound like the sort of thing that would necessarily be easier the second year. You have perhaps new goals and new outcomes that you're looking at.
Correct. And it might seem easy, but finding that goal in the classroom that you really want to work on for those students, and narrowing it down and being able to measure it is what's really time consuming.
Use the term on there, individually constructed professional development. So whatever they do to get better is because they need to do that to get better. You're not bringing 50 teachers in a room and say, okay, here's this topic. It's what's directly related to them becoming a better teacher. And everybody's is going to be different. Next item is the Waupaca Middle School PBIS. You heard the elementary school presentation on this last year, and it was very effective and a good presentation. And I'm going to ask Mr. Rayon to introduce our presenter tonight.
All right, we have Mrs. Kara Goodman. She is a student counselor in our building, working with Mrs. Biva. Mrs. Biva is at a basketball game tonight. Hopefully she'll be able to make it here at some point. But Kara's got a presentation to talk about where we are in the PBIS process. Mr. Pritzel is here as well to help support her with some of the stuff. He heads our PBIS committee in our building. I'm just backup.
Welcome.
Thank you. May I?
You may do it.
Use your computer?
Oh, that, sure, yes, I didn't know what you had in your hand. Okay. You got a school board?
Yeah, sure.
How's that?
Fabulous, thank you. Like Ben said, my name is Kara Goodman. I am a school counseling intern at Waupaca Middle School. I hail from UW Oshkosh, the school counseling program, and I'm here with Chad and Dawn to represent the PBIS team. So we're going to start off with talking about what we are doing to acknowledge the students and their good behavior and how we are rewarding them at Waupaca Middle School. We have the purple slips, which are little purple slips with the paw panther paw. And when students reach half 1,000 slips from each grade, they're going to have some sort of incentive. My understanding is that the incentive is extra recess time. And this is represented in the cafeteria. There is a football field visual. Each grade has their own football, and it's marked, the numbers are marked, so it kind of shows where they are as far as how many purple slips they have. And as you can see, as of November 4th, 5th grade is way in the lead with 805 purple slips.
They still want to please.
Well, part of that's also they're used to the rascal tickets. Elementary school, similar process. They're still used to giving those out.
So at first we were trying to figure out why 5th graders were handing in all the purple slips and why the other students weren't. For a while we thought the other teachers maybe weren't handing them out, they weren't as enthusiastic about it, and then we learned that students are hoarding their purple slips. They are under the impression that the more they have, they can turn them all in at the end of the year and get the mother prize, if you will. Or they simply forget. We've also had students trying to turn in slips from the previous school year, so they're learning the system, trying to play the system a little bit. Another issue that we've noticed is that many students still abide by the 5 rule. My understanding is that previously, students had to turn in 5 slips at a time for it to be able to count, and now they can just turn in slips as they get them. So many students still think, oh, I need to have 5 before I turn them in. So we need to continually reinforce that idea that, no, you can turn them in as you get them. You don't need 5 at a time. And also, to continue rewarding the faculty, provide an incentive to the faculty for remembering to hand out purple slips. And next we have the Silver Spoon Award, which is an award for being responsible in the cafeteria, so cleaning up your mess, wiping up tables, waiting for directions. If students get 3 wins in a row, they get extra pass time, and during this extra pass time, they have an opportunity to visit the school store, buy a snack. As far as I'm aware, 5th and 7th grade are generally the winners of the Silver Spoon Award. 6th grade is starting to catch on, and 8th grade simply is not interested. No, go on. All right, so for the advisory pieces, in the classroom once a week, teachers have an opportunity about maybe a half hour, 20 minutes to a half hour to go over the expectations in the classroom, in the cafeteria, in the hallways, in the commons. And they have their own little lesson plans put together to go over this. Their lesson plans are inspired from the Watch Me Succeed matrix, which is located, not only located throughout the building, but also in the student agenda books, so students can refer to that should they have any questions or suddenly forget appropriate behavior in the bathrooms. I am currently designing an advisory curriculum/resource manual myself for teachers to use. Research suggests that students learn the best by demonstrating, and so for them to demonstrate that behavior, that would mean that so many teachers would have to be taking big groups of students out of their classrooms into the hallway, into the cafeteria, to demonstrate appropriate behaviors. My hope is, what I'm trying to do is put together lesson plans that they can stay in the classroom if they need to, so we don't have mass students out in the hallway at the same time. And then there is also the expectations video, The Panther Way. Students put this together at the end of the last academic school year, right?
Over summer school.
Summer school students, okay. So students put this video together during summer school. They viewed it, each grade level viewed it within the first week of school, this school year. As an outsider, as I was watching it, my consideration was putting less emphasis on undesirable behaviors. It was kind of funny to watch all the students run down the hallway or try to jam pack themselves onto the bus. And it got a reaction out of the students. The students laughed, they thought it was amusing. So maybe should the PBIS team decide to put this video together again, they may consider placing less emphasis on undesirable behaviors. If this is something that interests you, that you would like to see, Mr. Pritzel would be more than happy to put it on the Google Drive, right?
Sure. Can share it with you.
Okay. So infrastructure. The PBIS team meets monthly. Each grade level is represented. Generally, they meet Tuesday mornings. And as I got to know the PBIS team, and I see the needs in the building, and I had an opportunity to talk with Scott Van Ness down at WLC to see where the Learning Center is as far as their PBIS implementation. I've noticed is that there is a real gap. The PBIS team is, at the WLC, I believe, is just about to start their Tier 2 training, or they're involved in their Tier 2, whereas the WMS is still at Tier 1. And as an outsider looking in, I'm kind of confused as to why there is not a district PBIS coordinator, and there is just a coordinator at the WLC. So perhaps in the near future, it may be beneficial to consider bringing on a district PBIS coordinator or creating that position.
You're an intern, right?
Yes.
So I can ask you the tough questions?
I can't promise you I'll have any answers, but I bet he does.
I'll tell you exactly what I tell them. Okay, which position do you want to eliminate so you can get a PBIS coordinator?
That was directed at you, Kira.
Oh.
That's
Well,
right.
I think it's rhetorical.
Well, I can answer that. I don't understand why Scott Van Ness cannot be district-wide as opposed just to the WLC. And hence the end of my fabulous presentation. Thank you.
You have questions?
I do. Just, could you tell people what PBIS stands for?
PBIS stands for Positive Behavioral Intervention Supports.
You said you're on stage 1?
Tier 1.
Tier 1? Okay. And what do you need to do to get to Tier 2 as an evaluation?
Tier 1, and I know John can speak a lot more of this, but from what we have, Tier 1 is universal, so what we do everywhere throughout our building. And so we're really working on that piece still a lot more. We have some trainings that we're looking to get into for this year yet. And then I know Tier 2 is where you start working on focusing on those individual students that need more support. more help, more direction with their behaviors. That's what John's working towards at the WLC currently.
There's an initial benchmark that you have to have with your entire school and your staff, and we took that last January. And then with those results, our PBIS team took what the staff said we needed to work on, and so we took those and made those our goals for the PBIS team. We then had to do 3 Tier 1 training overviews down at Portage or in the Dells. The team went down. We just finished last Thursday. Our team went down for the last Tier 1 training. And then at the in-service, we did the survey again at the end, just before we went down there. And you need to have 80% on the questions. We were at 82%, which makes us what they call fidelity for Tier 1, which then you can move into Tier 2. And then the training starts over, but the group gets smaller, and the PBIS committee actually changes based on the needs of the school. And then you focus in on those kids that are at the Tier 2 level of behaviors in your building.
And are you that organized or heading in that same direction?
We are moving towards that direction more so now. We're trying to follow what the WLC has done. Obviously, we're middle school, so things are a little bit different, but we're trying to see what things we can take from there, morph them into what we need, and move forward from there.
In high school as well, so they're looking at this a little less further down the road.
Got a pretty active group right now that, you know, again, has been working with Scott Van Ness some and has some ideas. Yeah, we like to see middle school, you know, progress and then follow them, kind of make sure that we're doing the same thing district-wide.
We have a lot of the pieces in place already at the middle school through working with Scott and John. You know, I was able to pick up quite a bit about what they're doing at the WLC, and we've been implementing that at the middle school already. So we have some of the pieces in place. We just haven't gone through the formalized training that the CISA and DPI provides. So that's our next step, is to go through that.
And you'll be seeing kids who have already been incorporated that into their everyday.
Right.
As they come into middle school.
Mm-hmm. We're starting to get more and more continuity between the Learning Center and in the middle school now. So they use certain things like a voice level system, for example, which we implemented this school year. And so the kids have a common language coming from the WLC to the middle school, et cetera. Like Ben said, not everything's going to be exactly the same. It's a different concept, the middle school concept versus elementary, but those key elements and language is kind of in place.
That's important.
Mm-hmm.
Are you seeing, is it too early to ask you if you're seeing any changes that are?
I mean, there's lots of anecdotal information out there. I mean, for example, the voice level system that we put in place this school year, I think if you ask the majority of our staff, has really helped bring down the noise level in halls. And there's verbal and nonverbal cues that all staff are using to, you know, to communicate with the students, you know, voice level. And so I think anecdotally, yes, there's evidence there that it's working. Hard data, probably not so much yet. But that's a work in progress as well.
Was the body basics part of the PBIS at the Learning Center?
Yes.
Okay. And does that continue into middle school? Or is that
It doesn't work quite as well at the middle school level, we're finding. So we take key components of some of that body basic stuff, but not the entire package.
Any other questions? Well, this was part of the requirement of her program, so good job, thank you.
Consent agenda?
To approve the consent agenda.
No, we're supposed to do that at 6:56.
Second.
We'll point out that you're behind. Okay, roll call. Let's start with Ken. Are you still with us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And Kirsten, are you still with us? said that she would be often. Connie?
Yes.
Steve Johnson?
Yes.
Betty Mannion?
Yes.
Sandy Robinson?
Yes.
Steve Shampo?
Yes.
And before you move to adjourn, would you just officially appoint someone as temporary clerk so we can get these documents signed tonight?
Connie?
Yeah, you're not on it. That'd be okay?
Sure.
Okay. Now,
Motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
thank you, Kenley.
Kenley.